So we hit infinite this month using primarily 3 deck lists. I've played quite a few decks this month, but these were the 3 that pretty much I played a lot. Sometimes I just play like 20 games. These I played quite a bit more just because I enjoyed them. Now, none of them run leader. If you have leader, go for it. I took it as a challenge to just not play leader for most of my climb. In this video, I want to talk about my card choices, possible replacements, play styles, stuff like that. Let me know if you guys like this sort of thing. First deck is Large Lads. Now, Sunspot ends up getting a lot of value. Sometimes turns are a little bit awkward and we float those turns. Feels less bad if you have Sunspot on the board. You also want to protect him with armor. So sometimes the dream is like turn 1, we Sunspot, turn 2, we armor. Turn 3, maybe you Polaris or Maximus. Sometimes you just don't care about the card draw you give with your Maximus. Then on turn 4, you can play Attuma into the armor because Attuma will not kill himself in the armor lane. Or maybe on turn 3, you could play a 2-drop like Lizard and then also play 0 and then play Attuma in a different lane so that he will not kill himself. Ideally, you just don't want to play Attuma if he's gonna kill himself. Maybe you save it for the last turn. You can end up going like 0 Attuma, or on turn 5, you could do 0 Attuma, or just wait turn 6, you could do Attuma armor. That way he doesn't kill himself. Turn 5 is generally going to be something like Black Panther into a lane that is not armored and also not Cosmoed by the opponent so that you can Arnim Zola him on 6. But maybe on turn 4, you ended up playing a 0. That means on turn 5, you can play a Red Skull that doesn't have the ongoing effect, although sometimes he's fine to just play with the ongoing effect. A lot of opponents don't play that many cards in a lane. If your opponent has 4 cards, this is essentially a 5/7, but maybe you bait your opponent into playing into that lane and then you Arnim Zola your Red Skull into your other 2 lanes. Black Panther into Arnim Zola can be telegraphy. So sometimes I just opt for Arrow for a bit of disruption, although Arrow can be used on the last turn to really just pull everything into a lane you're already losing in order to secure the win. Sometimes turn 6 ends up being 0 Red Skull. Sometimes you just Red Skull on 5, and even though he gives the ongoing, instead of Arnim Zolaing him, you can go ahead and Taskmaster him to copy the 15 power into a different lane. A lot of different lines here, a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this list. Now, as far as replacements, I'm thinking for Red Skull, you can put in Destroyer. Destroyer is just a big, large lad who will not kill things that are armored. You can also 0 into him if you want. A little bit less flexible than Red Skull. I really like that Red Skull costs 5 because you can play him on 5 into a Taskmaster. But if you don't have him, Destroyer might be a solid replacement. Another replacement, instead of Attuma, you could put in Typhoid Mary. Wait, that's the wrong one. Typhoid Mary, that's a lot cooler. Should I upgrade her? I'll upgrade her. You can put in Typhoid Mary instead of Attuma because Attuma, what? And you can 0 Mary, which is fine. But the thing is, with Attuma, we have 2 ways to kind of combat his downside, which is 0 and armor. What the? And armor. But with Mary, you have to essentially 0 her, or else you don't really want to play her. You don't have Maximus, you could try something like Swordmaster, maybe even a Deathlock. But if you're missing both Polaris and Maximus, it's kind of rough. I think the other 2 decks I'm about to talk about are a bit more friendly if you don't have all the cards for them. And you do have She-Hulk, you could definitely fit her in here instead. Because maybe you end up playing her, you know, on turn 4 if you floated turn 3 because it was awkward or something. Okay, the next deck is Invisible Drones. And this is just basically a Patriot deck. Patriot is very important here. If you don't have Patriot, maybe I'll show you another deck that'll do fine instead of trying to get substitutes, because you do need Patriot for this build. And I would argue that you also need Mystique. You could probably play without her with decent success. If you're not super high rank or super high collection level, you might do okay with just Patriot. Ultron, absolutely necessary in this build. This, I started doing a lot better with this deck once I switched up my playstyle. It's very important to toss priority. You do not want priority with this deck. The dream is to maybe play Invisible Woman into a Patriot, followed up with either Khazar or Mystique. Then you play Blue Marvel, and this is just gonna buff all your little minions, which you're gonna summon with Ultron. Now you're thinking, okay, Killmonger is gonna kill my whole board. They're all 1 power things. That's why we're throwing priority. We want our opponent to have priority going into the last turn, so they play their Killmonger, and then we play Ultron and summon all those drones that are just going to... Where's the drone? Summon all the drones that are just going to fill those lanes, get +4 power each, or maybe more, you know, and then we win the game. Storm is great here to lock a lane down, make it unplayable because of her flooding, and we don't really care about the flood because we can put things in there with debris, with Squirrel Girl, or of course with Ultron as well. Now, generally, I think a lot of new players are going to want to play Misty Knight on turn 1, and then they're going to want to play Shocker on turn 2, and then they want to play Debris on turn 3. You don't play it like that. Debris is actually kind of a Galactus tech here, or if your opponent just has a lot of priority, you can feel free to play Debris if you don't have a better turn 3 or 4 play. Wasp usually comes down at the end turn. You don't want to give them information unless you're expecting a wave going into the last turn. You generally want to throw down Wasp the same time you throw down Ultron, because he will create drones not at the lane you're in, but only in the other lanes. So maybe you end up having a lane that's got no Invisible Woman, but maybe you got, let's say, Patriot and Blue Marvel. Well, maybe on your last turn you drop Ultron there, but also drop a Wasp to just give you a big chunk of power there at the end on that final turn. Now, if you don't have these cards, I think Invisible Woman, you can get away without playing her. Sometimes she actually screws you because of your opponent, if they just play a Cosmo there, they kind of ruin your life. Enchantress isn't so bad because she will eat the Enchantress and your Patriot and your Mystique will be protected. Another thing that's ruined me is, like, if my opponent can read I'm gonna play a Patriot behind the Invisible Woman, or I'm gonna play Mystique behind the Invisible Woman, they will arrow it away, and then Mystique will copy nothing, and that kind of sucks. In the case that you don't draw Ultron, your last turn, you're just gonna, instead of spending 6 energy here, you're gonna do like Shocker, then you'll play Misty Knight, then you play Squirrel Girl, then you play like Wasp, just dump your whole hand, or maybe it's like Debris, and then you also play Squirrel Girl to kind of just fill up your board with these tokens so you can get value out of these buffs. Now I'm gonna talk about a deck for if you don't have Patriot. Essentially, this is very similar. I don't have a video on this out yet, but it will be coming out soon. This one capitalizes on Ultron. It's called Kazultron. It's basically a Kazoo sort of deck, but on a budget. You don't have Patriot, you don't have Mystique, but everyone has Kazar, everyone has Blue Marvel, and maybe you got Ultron. So Ultron here is used in a similar fashion. Of course, this doesn't have like Invisible Woman or anything like that. Here, we're just maybe locking down a lane, then doing Kazar into Blue Marvel into Ultron to fill up all those empty spaces. Also, we have Ebony Maw, so he will lock a lane down, and you can't play things there, but you don't care because you can use Ultron to put things there, or you're gonna use maybe Squirrel Girl to put some things there. Angela is often a 2 energy, 6 power, so that's really nice. We got Korg to put rocks in their pants, which is fun. We got Okoye to buff our deck up a little bit further. And then we have Armor to protect our ones. So you always have to fear the Killmonger. Maybe you play Iceman into Armor, and then on turn 3, maybe you play Korg and Ebony Maw in that lane in order to protect all your 1-drops. Nothing feels worse than your Ebony Maw getting Killmongered on the last turn. But yeah, this deck surprised me. I thought this was gonna be bad, but I played it at 103 Legend, and I think I had like 10 plus games and over a 1 cube average or something like that. So really solid budget option. I do think the Patriot build is a little bit better, but sometimes I feel like people expect this almost, so they don't play around the other build. All right, so the last deck is the C2 Yellow Goose, which is a Cerebro 2 deck. You need Cerebro, and you also need Mystique. And you kind of need Brood also. I think you can get by without it, but Brood is very, very important to get the maximum benefit out of Cerebro and Mystique. I meme around all the time with C8 decks, C10 decks. C2 is where it's at because you can summon more things to get more benefit out of Cerebro. When Cerebro is only affecting 2-3 things, it's very memey. That's why we have Mr. Sinister here to summon a clone, so they both get Cerebro buff. We have Brood here to summon 2 clones, kind of, to get 3 Cerebro buffs. We have Blue Marvel to tie it all together to give everything a buff. We have Storm to lock a lane down, which we can easily fill up with the Brood, or punch some power in with Mr. Fantastic. We have Goose to lock a lane down. If you have Goose in a lane, It cannot be Enchantress unless they play like Sarah or there's an Elysium on the board. This just protects your lane. If you don't have Goose, you could consider maybe Invisible Woman, but I really like Goose here. Probably the main question I get here is Yellow Jacket. I don't know if people think this is like an ongoing effect or something. It's generally just 0 energy, 2 power, get the Cerebro buff. I love Yellow Jacket here. You can opt really for anything that has 2 power if you're missing like Goose or Yellow Jacket or Brood, I guess. Popular cards that fit in a Cerebro 2 shell could be Daredevil. A lot of people like Daredevil. Using Daredevil and also playing like a Hobgoblin is not a bad option. Some people like Beast so that they can bounce 9 power monsters back to their hand. I personally don't like it, but some people think it's a good option. Other okay cards, I guess, could be something like Agent or even Angel or Cable if you're really down bad. These are okay. The thing is, like, Cable might get you a card that you can't end up playing. It'll give you information, but you can't actually play the card. Fisting is not bad because you can maybe hit into like a storm location, so that could be fun, but I generally feel like this is great. Oh, what are the other cards? M'Baku. If you have M'Baku, put him in here somewhere. You can drop the Yellow Jacket for him. He's a lot of fun. I think that's what I hear anyway. I just live vicariously through other people. You don't want to put things here that can get power and completely ruin your life, such as Carnage might be really awkward. Craven, something could move there and buff him up, and then you just you cry. Mantis, I guess, could be okay. That's another one where you don't really need the card because you're probably not going to play it unless you luckily have 2 power on it. Medusa, you don't want to have 4 power. So you can get Medusa and play her in an off lane if you're really down bad. You don't want Mojo to get his ongoing effect, so on and so forth. Quinjet's not a bad option, but you really don't want all these 1 power things because then you're at risk of getting Killmongered. Or 1 energy? What did I say? I meant 1 energy. But yeah, those are the 3 decks that I did play the most. I had a lot of success with those. There are a ton of great decks out there. I thought these were really cool because they did not include Leader. The Leader deck that Dara made is still very good if you want to play that. I remember I was playing one minus Magneto plus Doom. That did great. I think this is actually, is this the best performing Surfer deck? I think it might be. So if you have Silver Surfer, you can go for that. But I wanted to showcase some decks that maybe had cards that, I guess they were more budget. But I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think of this style of video. I was thinking of maybe making these monthly, just covering the decks that I personally used to get Infinite. Hope you enjoyed. Good luck on ladder and stay hydrated. Oh, real quick. Also, getting Infinite is totally not worth it. Like, you get this silly title. Like, you know you're not gonna use this title. There's other cooler titles. It's a lot of stress. I think getting Galactic is probably worth for the gold, but pushing to Infinite, I mean, it's cool if you got the time, but it's definitely like it could be stressful. You could get tilted if you drop from 99 to 95 or something. Like, just realize there's not a big reward for it. Maybe that'll alleviate some stress if you're kind of worried about it, or you get like ladder anxiety or something. But yeah, thanks for watching. Good luck on ladder and stay hydrated.